Next, we'll have Sarah Engel. She is a senior managing consultant at the Global Center of Excellence for AI and Analytics at IBM, and she will talk today about how to successfully scale AI and what role trust does play in this connection. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. Yes, so with AI, we are creating a new type of relationship between human and technology. And this interface is what fascinates me. So I've been working in neuroprosthetics, which is kind of the direct interface of the brain, the human body, and technology. So in case of an accident or disabilities, when people lose part of the body, devices can replace this part, and it can be controlled even with neuronal signals back again, so to achieve very precise movements. Either it's signals from the brain or from the muscles. And the next thing is you can even have sensory feedback, so that you have tactile feedback from the pressure or from temperature again. And I've been working on such a high-tech prosthetic arm, and I've been collaborating with a man in research who has lost his underarm due to an accident. So we have collaborating on those studies where I tried to interpret the neuronal signals and train this arm with machine learning algorithms. And what confused me is that this man always came with a very simple grasping arm when he arrived. Very simple, it didn't look even like a hand. It was just to open and to close with his shoulder movements, very simple. And I knew that he had access to this high-tech device also to use in daily life. And I asked him, why do you use always this simple arm instead of this high-tech arm if you have access to it? And he said, look, it closes when I want to close, and it also opens when I want to open. I can rely on this simple arm, I trust it. Can you imagine being at a conference like we here, and we stand together, you hold your glass, and you have a high-tech arm, and it spontaneously drops. Everyone's staring at you, and you have no clue why this happened. So this taught me it is so simple. Trust, the lack of trust is that it keeps a lot of technology, a lot of innovation unused. And this is why I'm talking about that scaling AI is really going hand in hand with building trust. And this we can now transfer also to business challenges. I've brought some examples from my clients that I've been working with. And the first one is that the business users do not trust the AI system that they have built, and it's not getting used. When we looked closer, what was pretty clear is that they had a very poor data foundation and thus very poor results. Also, due to the specifics of AI that it learns from examples, calculates models with probabilities over time, it has uncertainty and non-explainability built in. And the third component of it is it learns over time, which is a great feature of AI, but also if you need to rely on something and it always brings different results, it's tricky with the trust. A second example is this client said, we have this issue, we have no quantification of the actual business impact of our AI solutions. And in the previous years, there have been so much investment budgets allocated for data and AI projects that they just kind of forgot to think about the vision, the strategy, and the value they expect from this, nor did they measure it throughout. And this is not just one example. I see that in reality quite often, even it seems to be simple. A common challenge is finding, hiring, and also keeping the right AI talents. And when you have a look at your AI teams, what is the expectation from the data scientists? When I join those teams, it often seems they are expected to do magic, to scale it, all by themselves in locked rooms. And this is not the reality. We need to have the right roles and responsibilities that teams work together. Also, how are the ways of working? So, is it really a flexible environment where people can explore? And data science is part exploring before you have something to take into production. And also, the teams are often non-diverse. So you have purely data scientists sitting together and trying to resolve this problem. And the last example I wanted to show you is this client has built a great analytics team. They have executed multiple POCs, but none of it has made it to production. They didn't take into account the engineering discipline and operations to really scale it and to monitor and deploy their models. Also, they didn't have the capabilities in-house, so make sure you train your people. And one part is about the stakeholder management. What I often see is that there is a totally different understanding in organizations between different levels. So the C-suite has a completely different understanding what AI is and the potentials are than the actual operational level. And why this causes challenges is because the operational level needs to get some things for the production, for example, prioritized, which the C-suite or the leadership didn't see the urgency in and didn't give a go for their application. So these are some experiences that I had. And it's not just examples. There are always, between all those examples, million heavy investments behind. And also the numbers show proof. So it's not just the examples, and you heard that number already a couple of times, so you just see it here again. And now let me briefly introduce myself. So I'm Sarah Engel. I work at IBM, leading different AI projects to scale, to really have transformations in their organization, and I'm responsible for trustworthy AI in Europe. How I work with our clients is I co-create together with them what it takes to scale, and I advise end-to-end. So from the early vision towards really seeing the value come true, to the end, to scale. And what I realized very early on is we do not just need to care about technology because it's a socio-technological challenge. We need to take more care about the strategy, the value, business, people, and processes. And as we as individuals all go our individual path, also every team and every organization needs to find its own way. But there are some core elements, and these I'd like to highlight today, and I want to give you this sense of what these successful projects have in common. So when building AI systems, instead of having multiple AI models spread across the organization, embed them with the key components. And I want to start with a very simple question. Why are you doing these projects? Why did you choose AI? Are you sure you have an answer to that? So make sure that you have an AI strategy defined that also fits to your business strategy or is part of your business strategy. When it's getting more specific, think about the expected value that you have and measure it also throughout the way so that it's not just written in some document at the very initiation of the project, but measured throughout so that it's visible in every work item people work on. And what I commonly use is the VOTE framework to measure value. And I'd like to explain you a bit what it is about, and it can be different ones to be applicable. So the V acronym stands for the velocity, how quickly are teams developing outcomes. O is then the outcome, the actual benefit for the user, where you have, for example, pain points that you have researched, and you can look at what pain points did we resolve already, what are the benefits. And by the way, these two acronyms are the ones that are measured most of the times in Scrum. But what is not taken into account is the T and the E, which is technical and admin depth. So especially in Scrum, when you're focusing on quick delivery, look at the technical and admin depth. Are you increasing the workload for later on? So is it really a sustainable solution? So you want to reduce this depth, of course. And the E stands for engagement. Feel the pulse of your teams, whether they are still healthy. Now we are transitioning to the how. So the disruptive nature of AI requires agility. Agility in planning, in the delivery, that you manage work and not the workforce, that you put people, the users, in the center of all the design. And when you have agility in your teams, be aware that from going from exploration towards production, you go through different phases which have their specifics, and they are equally important. So with a co-create, You open up, you have ideation, you explore, you research, you identify the business opportunity. So you have kind of a funnel with all the plenty of ideas to identify one business opportunity that is worth investing in. Maybe it's multiple, but let's take just one for the moment. Then you move on to the co-execution. This is where the innovation happens. So you realize it in a minimal viable product that goes live. And then you move on to the co-operate to make sure this is also scalable. So to deploy, to monitor, and to adapt throughout. This is very important for AI, that the adaptation is built in. You need to have a very solid data foundation and also a target architecture that is built for scale. And you're going to hear a lot more on the data and technology part throughout these days. It needs to be accompanied by engineering practices. So are the models running on personal computers, or do you have the right environments in place for the people to actually deploy? It needs to be accompanied by scaled practices. So how are your pipelines built? Make sure that you automate as fast as possible the manual steps, and that quality gates are also built in such processes. And everything I've talked about now means change for an organization. Change for people, how they work, how they collaborate, and what they work on. The processes change, and technology is also evolving rapidly. So please make sure that you guide people through this change. And one effective instrument is communication. So make sure that everyone knows what the value is, how they contribute to this change, and why they need to change. Also, co-create the new together with them. So let them be part of this change, empower them. And the leadership type also shifts from managing a workforce towards a servant leadership, where you are there as leaders to resolve impediments of the teams. The team know they have a lot of capabilities. They know what's right. You are there to support and to resolve impediments, and make sure that the feedback you gather are not just surveys being somewhere, but that really something happens with the feedback the teams give you, and also in time. Now, the people are the backbone of your organization, of your AI projects. So enable the people that are there, train them. Also, AI is a team sport, so we do not just need the data scientists, but also engineers, architects, psychologists, business stakeholders, and also lawyers and designers. We need them to bring them all on the table, because diversity drives also the innovation. And if you've done that right, you will attract great talents. So to sum up, these 20% that finally go live and scale have these success criteria in common. And why did this patient not trust the AI from the beginning? Why do your employees, your users, not trust the AI? It's when you go through the hexagons from before your eye, from the vision, are the principles really that technology augments human beings? Are the ways of working trustworthy? Do you have privacy, security mechanisms built into the data and technology? Do you have reliable and robust pipelines? Are people willing to change? And do you have a healthy environment for people to trust each other and to learn from one another? So trust is not just a weak attitude on top. It really builds the foundation to scale AI successfully. And let me tell you from this example from this man from the neuroprosthetics, it is really stunning when AI becomes part of the human body perception, which we call AI. So you can really see that this is then part of his body. And I want to encourage you, build AI that your people trust, that they adopt, that they might even embody. Trust is earned and not given, and the only way to earn trust is by showing behavior that is trustworthy. I want to thank you for listening, and I hope you can take away some sparks, some ideas for your organization to scale AI with trust. Thank you.